Good morning, folks. Welcome back to Threes In again. I've got a little bit of recording time here today, so I'm going to pull out a couple of these stories that have been bouncing around my head and share them with you. Another Australian story I have. I met Chuck Yeager in Australia the first time, if you will. I met him 2 or 3 times over the period of my life. And first time I met him was in Australia, and he was down there to talk to the Australian military and Australian industry about the F-18 program. So we all gather in this theater. I think it was at one of the universities here in Canberra. At any rate, he got up and gave his presentation on the F-18, and you had in the audience very high-ranking Air Force officers and highly educated scholars, people from academia, people from industry, and so forth. You get the idea. A lot of heavyweights in there. And this one little twit stands up and he says, General Yeager, he says, I notice you mentioned the modular engine concept of the F-18. And what he means, to give you a little background on that, the F-18 has modules in their engines, which means if your engine has a problem, you can pull the whole engine out. You can take a module out, like the hot section, the compressor section, whatever, and then just replace that section of it, bolt it back together, and send it on its way. Anyway, this guy says, and you also mentioned that once you change out that section, you don't have to run it out on an FCF, a functional check flight, to test the reliability of the engine because it was so reliable. That was one of the selling points. So he says, he stands up there with our experience with jet engines and this, that, and the other, and I look at my name tag, this is who I am, and okay, fine. So he says, he goes on a little bit about that. He says, I just don't know if we can buy into that. He says, we're paying a lot of money for that airplane, and to risk it with just swapping out compartments on the jet engine, or modules on the jet engine. And Chuck stood down there for a minute, looked at him. He said, well, with all due respect, sir, he says, if you choose to buy our airplane, he says, what you do with it's none of our business. He said, you want to use it for airborne engine test stands, you go right ahead. We're going to use ours to kill our enemies. And you could hear a pin drop. At any rate, God bless him. I love that answer. I'm sitting there, yeah. Anyway, later that evening, I personally met him at a reception at the embassy, and I was just in awe of him. He was a neat guy. And then I'll tell you what's amazing. Years later, I ran into him up at Northwest Airlines, up at the training center. He was up there giving a presentation for Northwest. And I collared him in the hallway and I said, General Yeager, I said, I don't know if you remember, but I met you 10 years ago, whatever it was. I said, we were down in Australia. And he said, it's Bob, isn't it? And I said, yes, sir. The guy had a fantastic memory. And that's one thing I noticed about all generals. One characteristic they all seem to have is a good memory. Every one of them that I met, whether he was a good guy or a jerk or this, that, or the other, the one common denominator was they all seemed to have very, very excellent memories. And it just struck with me. I have an excellent memory, but I never made general. I also get a little lippy. That's probably something I need to look at. But anyway, we'll let that go. This is Bobo chatting with you. So good to see everybody. Base gear. Stop.